Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast, episode 49 with Charlie and Justin. Justin, how are you this lovely afternoon? Well, I should say evening.
Yeah, definitely evening this time.
Yeah, it's late. We record at all different times.
Yeah.
Generally, we try for morning. Usually, like we talked about last week, was the first week where we were actually somewhat at a normal hour.
Yeah.
Because it's usually super early or super late. Not that today's too late, but got to get it in before Saturday night because we always post on Saturday nights.
Absolutely.
We've done it for 49 straight weeks.
Yeah.
Going on a year. We mentioned that the past couple episodes
Yeah.
too. So still putting some feelers out on what we should do for our year anniversary.
Yeah. So basically, season 1, like almost in the books, getting ready to wrap up.
Yeah.
Pretty fun.
I didn't think we would make it this far.
No.
Not because of us, but I didn't think that there would be a reason for us to make it this far.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I didn't think that we would be relevant enough to enough people.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I didn't think enough people would listen to us to
Right.
warrant us going any longer than
But
a couple weeks. I mean, we were hopeful. We would say,
Yeah.
hey, maybe that was why we started in the first place, was because people could possibly benefit from our
yeah,
conversations. But lo and behold, we actually still have people that listen to us. So, going to keep going, I guess.
Yeah. I actually got talked to about merchandise by a few people recently.
Cool.
Like this past week. They're like, so how do we buy like shirts and hats and stuff?
Pretty surreal when, we first started and we're just trying to get people to listen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So what's new, man? How was training this week and all that fun stuff?
Pretty good. Mainly did cardio this week. I did a push and a pull day. I didn't do a leg day. I got entirely too busy yesterday, and it just didn't get it together. But like I said, them push these odd exercise days. How I've been doing it, where it's like 30 minutes of like high paced movements, and then go out and just get some cardio in the morning. I like it, but it's taken me some time to adjust because we did all that time where I was doing all the like powerlifting, trying to get bigger and stronger. So it's taken time to get adjusted to the actual workout itself.
It's always weird for me whenever, I don't delve too far away from what I normally do.
Yeah.
At least consistently. Like we always preach trying new stuff and
Yeah.
doing different things, but as far as long term goes, I generally don't get too far away from where my comfort zone is training wise. But I think that it's interesting, or it's kind of weird when you have to get used to feeling like you did enough when you're aiming for efficiency.
Yeah.
So when you're doing cardio and doing faster tempo workouts, physically you feel like you did enough because sometimes you're more tired,
Yeah.
more exhausted from like pushing at a higher tempo, heart rate is more elevated. But then mentally it's difficult for people because they look back and say, well, I was only at the gym for a half hour or
Right.
45 minutes, whereas typically I'm used to being there for an hour and a half. So did I do as much? Because like I see that with normal people. And when I say normal people, I mean people who don't have a ton of experience in the gym, where they think that quantity is indicative of quality, which
Right.
it's not.
No.
Anybody who has trained regularly knows that, but some people get caught up in thinking that the more they do, and you can't blame them for that.
No.
Like, I feel like that's I don't want to say a pretty obvious thing, but usually the more work you put in, the more you get out of it.
Right.
And to an extent, that's true. But you can be very, very efficient with your workouts too.
Yeah. So I've been basically what I'm doing now, and what I'll probably do until I get to a weight that I feel is solid, right? I will keep doing this. I'm just trying to keep my heart rate up for at least an hour fasted in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to keep it like double my resting at least. So I normally rest like 56 to 60, and I'm trying to keep the workout like 150 and above
Mm-hmm.
for the full hour. So
How do you measure that?
I have
with
my
your watch?
My watch, yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty accurate because I've used a watch and a chest strap, and they're pretty close. So it's like the chest strap's a pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I just use the watch, and I figure it's going to be consistent. It might not be accurate to a T of what my heart rate really is, but as long as it's double what it says it normally is, I feel like,
Well, yeah.
yeah,
I have that discussion with people with their weight,
right,
where they say, oh, well, I don't know if this scale, how accurate the scale is. And I tell them, unless you're getting ready for a competition where small increments of weight are crucial and
Right.
very important. It doesn't really matter where you're at, where your starting weight is, as long as you're using the same scale, the net gain or net loss is going to be consistent either way.
Right.
So if I gain 3 pounds, it doesn't matter if I'm 120 to 123 or if I'm 220 to 223.
Right.
You know that you're gaining 8 pounds, and if that's what your goal is, then good, and if not, then adjust.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter as long as you're weighing in at the same time. So like you, if someone was measuring their heart rate, as long as they're using the same device and not
Right.
switching devices all the time, then you know that it's accurate. So
That's why I weigh in like I do too. Like my weigh in is exactly the same time, same day, every week.
oh yeah.
Yeah. No. So it's
And that's it. Seems again something else that seems common sense when you've trained and done it for a while, but if you're not used to it, I think some people really underestimate how much of a difference that can make.
Mhm.
So if you weigh in, like let's say whatever your lightest situation would be, so waking up slightly dehydrated, fasted on an empty stomach, go to the bathroom naked.
Yep.
That's as low of a body weight as you're possibly going to get throughout the day.
That's exactly how I do it.
And then if you have someone else who, eats a couple meals or weighs themselves midday, there's a lot of factors that are going to play in there.
Right.
And you'll have people initially where you try to, tell them the importance of controlling all the controllables. I mean, we talk about variable control all the time. And so people need to take that into account when they're weighing themselves because there's so many things that are going on that could skew the number.
Yeah.
So-
Well, I actually used to way back when before we really got serious and I really started losing weight.
Way back when, no
Yeah.
pun intended.
Yeah, way back when I before the journey even started, when I would get into a I'm going to lose weight kind of mood and do a fad diet, I would cheat the scale just to make myself feel like it's working.
Mm-hmm.
Lean on the wall, wear a bunch of clothes this week and nothing next week. Weigh in the morning this week and not in the evening next week. And then that way the following week it was better. It's insane to look back and think that that's a lot of people do that though.
Oh yeah.
A lot of people cheat themselves into success, and like into the false place in their head where they're actually not doing anything, but they feel like they are. And I feel bad because it took a long time for me to freaking learn it. To really learn that was happening.
Well, yeah, and I think that your mind is such a powerful tool, which it comes with its negatives, and one of those is that mentally, ironically, I would say mentally strong people, even though it sounds like an oxymoron. If they're mentally strong, they shouldn't be cheating themselves, but mentally strong people can sometimes convince themselves of anything. So you can
Right.
convince yourself that there's progress there, or you can convince yourself that there's excuses. For me,
Mm-hmm.
and an item that we've talked about, innumerable times at this point on the podcast, is writing down your training. For if you're somebody that's looking to gain muscle and gain strength, then you want to have measurables in place so you log your workouts. And for me, prior to doing that, I could convince myself that a particular weight is as heavy as I could go.
Mhm.
I say, oh, this is all I can get for 10 reps. I go to 10 reps and that's it. Well, then the next week I might hit the same amount. Whereas now I'm forcing myself to go above and beyond. Again, it's not just with heavy weight. Could be with more reps, more weight, better control,
Right.
more force or load, stress on the muscle, I guess. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. But for me, it was strength-wise, and I could convince myself that I was going heavy enough.
Right.
Whereas realistically, unless you're progressing, sounds funny, but unless you're progressing, you're not progressing.
Right.
So-
Exactly.
Yeah, you can convince yourself anything, which is difficult. And I don't think like you ever, I don't know, maybe people do. I have not ever mastered that yet.
No.
I'm getting better,
Yeah.
but I'm not great at it,
Yeah, and part of this little setback for me now is that exactly, like, not the logbook portion, because the logbook never really changed for me. I've always been through this whole journey very dedicated to my logbook and making sure we're I want to be able to look back and see.
Yeah.
But the weight portion, I stopped. You just by talking about it a little bit, I just started to realize it. Like, I don't know, right around November, I guess probably, I stopped every Monday. What it was, back then it was Mondays I weighed in. Every Monday I would update my MyFitnessPal with what the weight was for the week.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't done that in a while because recently, we lost 8 or 9 pounds since we started back, like really strictly dieting and watching and stuff. I'm down 9 pounds, and I logged that in my Fitness Pal, and it said that it's been like 20 weeks since I updated that.
Yeah.
And
And
I
I
was
think
like,
that
whoa.
if you don't have measurables, it's easier to get off track more so than you would think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because, if I am, let's take someone who could be potentially in the opposite situation, like someone who's trying to gain weight. You could miss a couple meals here and there. And if you're not weighing in, you're not really understanding the ramification of missing those few meals.
Right.
And, you go a couple days and then maybe a couple weeks and you don't realize you're down 10 pounds. And it's like, oh my gosh, that happened fast.
Yeah, and that's detrimental especially in your case, like you said, if you're trying to gain weight, I've never been on that end of the spectrum, I guess. So I can imagine that it's just as, if not worse, than trying to lose weight.
Yeah, I mean, the principles are all the same.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if you're trying to gain, maintain, or lose. You still have to kind of follow the same protocol of
Right.
tracking variables and then following through on it. So
Right.
it's pretty. I mean, but you said you're down 9 pounds and it's been less than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, what, a little bit over a week and a half?
I think today is 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, because I basically started back again solid on a Sunday, 2 weeks on episode 47.
Gotcha. So when everybody hears this,
Yeah.
it'll be 2 weeks basically
Right.
tomorrow because they'll probably listen on Sunday.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
So-
What about nutritionally speaking?
So what I decided was I wanted to take a little slower approach this time.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've talked about it before. The last time I did this, we started like the main journey. I went all in, head over heels.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, when I started working with you, it was hard because we didn't have a whole lot to pull from.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have, this time I feel like if I control small increments and make small changes, we see weight loss already, so it's working.
Yep.
We'll have more to pull from later when it gets hard.
Well, and like you always hear people talk about the minimal effective dose.
Yeah.
And that can refer to anything. It could refer to training, cardio, nutrition, supplements, drugs, whatever.
Right.
Anytime you hear minimal effective dose, you want to do as minimal as possible and still get the desired result. So when people hear that, sometimes in your head it triggers be as lazy as possible and get the desired. And that's not the case. Like if you're aiming for, let's say someone's prepping for a bodybuilding competition and they have to do cardio because that's part of the deal with fat losses. I mean, there are some exceptions, but most people, in order to get very shredded, are going to have to do some form of cardio.
Right.
So let's say you're doing cardio and you automatically start off at 2 hours of cardio a day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then once your body adjusts to the stimulus you're giving it, it's going to need more than that to make progress.
Yeah.
And within that spectrum, you can also consider the fact that doing 2 hours of cardio today is going to be detrimental to maintaining your muscle.
Right.
So you may lose muscle in the process. So you want to do as little as possible with still making the progress that you want to make. So in that scenario, you would start with maybe 30 minutes of cardio a couple times a week. Maybe lose a couple pounds. Then when it stalls, let's say diet isn't going to get changed because there's a lot of things to pull from. You
Right.
could change supplements, you could change your diet. Let's just say just cardio. You wanted to leave your diet the same. Well, then maybe you would do 30 minutes, but up the frequency. So now instead of 3 times a week, maybe it's 5 times a week. And then maybe every day you're doing 30 minutes of cardio. Well, then eventually that's going to yield results, but they're going to start to plateau, and then you'll add 45 minutes or an hour or whatever and just slowly build from there, because that's something that you see all the time. And I was talking to Austin at a seminar that he did, my coach Austin, who we've had on a previous episode, and he said that, I don't want to throw a number out there that's different from what he mentioned, but I want to say he said about 70 to 80% of people that come to him for fat loss, whether it's like a prep scenario where they want to lose weight for a competition, or it's just someone who wants to lose weight to be healthier or get in shape. He said that 70 to 80% of people are not ready to diet when they start working with him. Meaning calories are too high, cardio is too high, calories are too low and cardio is too high. So you can't really make increases in metabolic output and you can't really decrease, nutritional intake. So then you're left in a crappy situation.
Right. So, that's
I think that it's
brain fart.
well, it's just kind of crazy how that high of a percentage of people, in his estimation, aren't ready for a dieting phase.
Which
So you
is
have to like
crazy.
kind of upregulate food and everything first, and then get them to the point where they're ready to lose weight.
Right.
Because I mean, the fundamental basis of losing weight is doing more work and or eating less.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty simple. But some people, when they try it on their own, take that too far extreme to one end, where they're
Mhm.
working, and not eating, and that's going to result in metabolic issues, hormonal issues, unfortunately. And then they wonder why they can't lose weight, and they get frustrated because it's like, I can't do any more cardio, I can't eat any less food, and I'm still not losing weight. I must be broken, or something's wrong with me. And that's when, a qualified person would come in and kind of reassess and rearrange and
Right.
do that kind of stuff.
I like that. I feel like I'm broken.
Yeah.
I think where my brain fart is cured, by the way. The thought came back. So you said, where some people feel like they're being lazy, because it is. It's the least effective dose. So, and that's where I'm at with it. I think right now too. As part of the reason I'm struggling, because I downregulated strength training so I could upregulate cardio.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I'm not getting a good sweat in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But I know my heart rate's up. I know it's working, but it's just I'm used to solid hour lifting and stretching and stuff, where I'm moving enough that I'm getting a sweat, and that's the sweat factor to me helps a lot.
Oh, yeah.
It's a mental thing.
I was talking to somebody not about that exact same thing, but I had a new client start with me about a week ago, and in the gym client, so a personal training client, and she's new to the gym, new to strength training, new to exercising for, all intents and purposes, and her and I were talking specifically about soreness,
Mhm.
and how, depending on who you talk to, there's different interpretations of soreness. So one could be, oh, I got a really good workout because I'm very sore, so I must have done something to, break down muscle tissue and stress my body out for the opportunity to grow back stronger and be better. A counter argument or counter viewpoint could be, you're not recovered enough, so nutrition or hydration wasn't on point. And both of those are right and both of those are wrong, depending on the scenario.
Right.
So I had to explain to her that, being sore doesn't mean you weren't recovered enough necessarily. Sometimes it's just a byproduct of poor training, but it also doesn't mean that you had a great workout either. There's,
Right.
Some specifics that go in there, and it really depends on the day. And I think the same thing could be said about sweating. Like, just
Right.
because you sweat a lot doesn't mean you had a great workout, but if you don't sweat, that doesn't mean you had a bad workout either,
Right.
or no workout, because there's so many other factors that go into it. But I know what you're saying, because mentally for me, I like sweating too, because I feel like I'm
It's
working harder. Like, I don't know about you, but I always get better as the workout goes on,
I agree.
because I feel like I'm more warmed up, both literally, and joint wise and tissue wise and stuff.
Mhm.
I'm more nervous system is more activated, I guess. And I also like the feeling of pushing harder when I'm tired.
Yeah.
So like after I'm tired, that's when my workout starts to accelerate. When you maybe have more energy at the beginning, but you feel more energy as the workout gets towards the end, I think.
Right. Well, so from the time that I've spent working out with you and training with you one-on-one, I now I've taken all that knowledge I've learned, and I'm applying it to my workouts now. So I know like the motions and the movements and the exercises I'm doing, I'm executing them properly. So I feel like if I'm not sweating, then I'm not doing enough of them. You know what I mean? So like that's a mental spot for me, where it's like I feel like I need to do more, but time constraints are showing that I have this much time to work out. So I have to do what's working, and where I'm getting a good sweat and where I feel like I'm getting a pretty decent workout is in the cardio. So
I think part of it's the pump too. The same
Yeah.
thing can be said for the pump. Like, people, chase the pump, so to speak, where they're trying to get, like, let's say I'm training arms or upper body and you feel real swelled up and pumped. People think that that's indicative of a good workout too. But realistically, I mean, there are some hypertrophy benefits to the pump, but you're not breaking down as much muscle tissue as possible in that type of a situation. So it's probably not. Basically, if you're only doing high reps and low weight, you're not going to build muscle like
Yeah.
you think you will, or that
Right.
you're capable of, at least to your full potential or as quickly as possible.
Right.
There are some benefits, but again, it's mental because people feel a good pump in their arms and they feel like they had a great workout. Now, I'm not against that. Like, we used to have like high rep arm training days and stuff, and we do it just for fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. But I just don't think that doing every workout is that way would be beneficial. Kind of like if you're going into the gym with the mentality of, I'm just going to sweat as much as humanly possible today, or I'm going to try to make myself as sore as possible tomorrow.
Right.
Those things are kind of a byproduct of good training occasionally, but they're not a sole indicator of good training.
Right.
Another one would be throwing up. Like, people say, oh, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to train legs so hard I'm going to puke. Like, occasionally that happens as a byproduct. That, like, I've thrown up before, like on training legs and stuff like that. But you shouldn't go in aiming to try to puke.
Right. It doesn't.
Because I feel like that's digging the proverbial hole deeper, and you're not going to be able to get out of it when you're in, doing that type of thing. But
Yeah. I've never experienced that part of strength training.
yeah.
I have running.
Mhm.
I've ran, especially like at the end of races last year when I was heavier, and I knew I was pushing for a certain time. I pushed a little too hard a couple times where I puked at the finish line, or just south of the finish line, anyways. That's not puking in public is not something I like to do.
Yeah.
But so anyways, how was your training this week?
Good. Solid. I actually had to take a day off, which was self-inflicted, more or less. I had a client who I started doing his programming, so not like a one-time consultation where we're just giving him a workout. He's new to strength training, more or less. I mean, he lifted a little bit for sports, but he's a freshman in college and he wants to get into bodybuilding. I tried to dissuade him, but he unfortunately still wants to do it. So I said, okay, man, we'll put together some programming for you and, set you up with a workout. And I think I mentioned it on an earlier episode that I went to his house and trained with him. So he came down to my gym and trained on one of the other days because I kind of wanted to show him, number one, how to perform all the exercises on each day. And then number two, I also kind of wanted to teach him how to train, like what true intensity looks like. Not that you expect him to smash his head off a bar and be vomiting afterwards, but you have to put a little bit of effort into your training if you're going to get something from it.
Right.
So he and I trained together, came down to our gym. And his workout right now is higher volume than mine is because we're trying to develop sound movement patterns. So take barbell squats, for example. We train legs together on Wednesday, and barbell squats are a part of his program. And he, is really good in sound mechanically, like from the movement perspective, because he's an athlete his whole life. So it makes teaching the squat easier. Didn't have to do much work there. But you're still trying to elicit some muscle memory with movement patterns. So you want to do something over and over again. Not that he's doing 30 or 40 sets, but I mean, he's doing, a working set of 10, a working set of 8, a working set of 6, and a working set of 4. So he's kind of accumulating some load and understanding what it's like to go heavier. But then within that, he's performing a lot of reps comparatively to someone who would be doing, like a top set of 12 or a top set of 8 for squats or whatever. So long story short, his workout, right now is a lot higher volume than mine is because he doesn't have the nervous system fortitude, I guess, for lack of a better term, to be able to put all into one set because he's not used to strength training. He hasn't developed that yet. So he's kind of get it through volume. Well, I did his workout with him because we're trying to teach him, all the exercises and stuff. Most of them he knew. Actually, pretty much all of them he knew how to execute, but there's just some minor details that I'd feel comfortable working out as far as your technique goes that we can really hone in and get some progress. So I did his workout and treated it as though it was my workout. So, when I'm doing 4 or 5 working sets of a barbell squat, I treated my first working set like it was a top set and it was all out. And then I was unable to walk for a couple days. So we did, basically what we did was the workout was, warm up and cardio. And we spent about 15 minutes doing mobility work. And that's an everyday thing for me, get really, really thoroughly warmed up. Then first movement was, I shouldn't say movement, it was plural movements, where we spent about 15 minutes doing glute work. So we did a lot of bridging, a lot of lateral band work. Again, that's kind of an extension of the warm up. First exercise was squats. We did several sets of squats, followed by several sets of trap bar deadlifts where we worked up heavy as well. And then finished with some Bulgarian split squats. Now, again, 3 exercises plus glute work doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're doing, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 working sets and putting all in and treating those like top sets, it ended up being pretty rough.
Yeah.
So that was Wednesday. Take off Thursday, which I normally do. Friday could not go. Was going to make up my workout today, but it's a pull day is my next session, and was supposed to train today. I said I'll just push it back a day. Train today, and my legs were so sore, and a lot of my back training is different standing row variations, bent over row variations, and deadlifts and stuff. So like my legs were still smoked that it wouldn't have been. I would have not been doing myself any favor if I went to train. I wanted to, didn't want to miss the workout. It's not like, oh, I'm too sore, I don't want to. It's, oh, I'm too sore, I shouldn't type deal.
Well, and that's a good place to get to in your strength training journey and your bodybuilding journey is to know when the prescribed dose is rest.
Yeah.
And even when it's not a prescribed rest day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I've gotten to the point now where I'm pretty good about my rest days, meaning I have set rest days right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm only on a 4-day split and they're spread out. But most of the time, I recommend people don't have set rest days. Take them when your body needs them.
Right.
Sometimes that can be misinterpreted, though. Again, going back to people having the ability to convince themselves of things, they convince themselves that they need an off day. My sole indicator is the logbook. Right. So when I have sore legs, for example, I will look at my logbook, look at the numbers, and say, do you have the ability today to walk in and beat those numbers? And if the answer is no, then I'm not going. I mean, I could, the other day I went to go to the bathroom. I couldn't even sit down on the toilet. That's how sore I was. I mean, it was very bad. But sometimes that's necessary too, again, to get out of your comfort zone.
Right.
So like, I look at it as, okay, when I'm done with this DC type of training, which is the low volume, and there's more things that go into it than just low volume as far as what the DC training protocol is concerning, but just the lower volume, I look at this as, okay, when we're done with this, we're going to have to go to like a higher rep phase because it's definitely needed for me, because you can tell that I'm not used to it, and it would be the next phase of what I need to get better at, because I mean, it's ultimately what everything's all about is finding things that you're bad at and trying to do them.
Absolutely.
Like how many times have we had that discussion about the exercises that you hate the most are probably the ones that you should be doing. The reason you hate them is because you're bad at them, and therefore you're not going to do them, but you probably should.
That's funny. We're looking at one of the exercises that I hated the most, and then I grew and made myself grow to love, is this hill that, we're sitting in front of. Mm-hmm. The first time I ever, fast walked or tried to run it, it was absolutely miserable. And I beat myself on it every day because I wanted to make that thing one of my favorite things to do. So I understand what you mean. Like with things that we're bad at, we have to get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess that's that it's a personality thing. Like you need, certain people have that personality where they have to get better at their weakness. I
took that approach, and for whatever reason, it was only during my last prep. So I didn't have that mindset in the off season. I don't know why. But my weakness was always from a stage perspective, from a cosmetic standpoint, was my back. So I never had a bad back, and it wasn't terrible, but it was definitely a point that I needed to improve on a lot. And I knew that. And there was a reason, I think, looking back in hindsight, why my back wasn't great. Because when I was, an athlete in high school and college, my back was always really good.
Yeah.
It's because all I did was deadlift. Not all I did, but I loved deadlifting. And it added a lot of size, and it was very strong as a result, amongst other back exercises. Well, then when I had my hernias and I got hernia surgery, I tended to stay away from any type of heavy deadlifting, just because I thought that I would be possibly putting myself at risk, despite the doctor telling me that's not the case, you're fine. Right. So there were years gone by where I didn't do heavy deadlifts or heavy rack pulls, and it hurt me.
Right.
So I had to bring my back up. And I'm not sure why, but during contest prep for my last show, a year ago now, it kind of like clicked with me that like I wanted to make back days my favorite day because I hated them. And then it was a scenario of what came first, the chicken or the egg. Do I hate my back days because my back sucks? Or does my back suck because I hate my back days and I don't like training it? So it could be either, and I wasn't sure. So I made a point to myself to say, and when I say back, this goes all of back. So that's posterior chain. So hamstrings too, because my hamstrings are terrible. So that was an area that I needed to improve on. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to try to fall in love with this and just look at this opportunistically. Like look at this as an opportunity, because we always talk about like how hardships and adversity is an opportunity for people, and it's important to look at it like that. Now, me having a crappy back is by no means like adversity,
right.
Or hardships, but regardless, I tried to look at my training and say, okay, I'm going to use this as an opportunity. So, because I felt like every time I went in there for a back day, hey, this is a chance to make my back less crappy.
Right.
I'm going to do it today. And then I continued to do that over time. And then suddenly my back started coming up to the point where, I look at some of my show shots and I'm like, man, my back looks actually pretty good in that shot. Like, that's not bad. Like, I'm impressed with that shot of myself because I didn't think that, like, my back has looked that great. So I think that taking that approach to my back training really, really helped.
Yeah.
And I hated doing the exercises, like with the exception of deadlift, which I just like it because I like lower body training, like leg training anyway. I hated pull-ups. Like I hated different row variations. I hated pull downs. Pretty much any back exercise I just didn't like. Right. Now, again, I don't know if that's because I wasn't great at them or super strong, or if, it just mechanically I just didn't enjoy the movement. I don't know. I just was never a fan of back training.
Yeah. I'm the same way with leg training. I like it, but I am not good at it. So I used to stray away from it as much as possible, really.
Well, I think that's everybody, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like that kind of transcends the gym, I would think.
Yeah.
That like you're not going to do anything that you're bad at.
Right. But once I started this last phase of like when I was really overload training a lot, I started to really get into squatting and leg press more, and I actually started to see progress in my legs. It was one of the places where the little bit of weight gain I feel like did help was my legs, because I got the chance to really train them heavy. And I think my squat got up to like almost 3. Was it over 315? I think it might have been over 315 at the highest, and then I had a hernia and had to take some time off from that, because that's scary.
Yeah.
That mine wasn't as bad as yours, but that is scary to me, and I feel the same way about it now. I'm like, I'm afraid to do heavy.
Yeah.
So.
And everything has to be cyclical, not just from a training perspective, but a nutritionalist perspective too. I think that more variety and doing things in phases always works. Like with me, it's not low volume, heavy weight. Like I'm not doing heavy all the time. That happens to be the current phase that I'm in for a couple months, and then we'll switch it up. Like with my coach Austin, we've done different periods of different things, and my body's responded accordingly. I think that there's benefits to doing every type of training.
Yeah.
But when you do any type of training for too long, it starts to get detrimental. So I think the key is finding a particular training style or methodology that you subscribe to and you think is beneficial. Do that just long enough before the negatives start to set in. And that is something that you have to be able to pick up on just with like normal biofeedback, which is hard for people. You just have to listen to your body. How sore am I? How do my joints feel? Like almost like you can tell when injury or when, sleep patterns are off. Just, when something's coming where it's okay, it's time for me to switch things around. And realistically, that's what a good coach can help you with, help you determine those things if you're inexperienced. But the way that the analogy that I think of is like the New England Patriots, how it seems like they have this uncanny ability of trading people who are seemingly in their prime, and they'll get a lot of flack for it, where people will say, how on earth do you let this guy walk, like without signing him to a new contract? He's a great Pro Bowl player. And then within 2 years, the guy's out of the league.
Yeah,
Now,
fall.
whether or not that's because he's not with the great organization or because they're just really, really good at knowing performance-wise when a guy's about ready to dip and then, no, we're not going to pay. It's like they never overpay for people.
Right.
It's amazing how they do that. It's like they have this sense when, a person's not going to pan out in the long term because there's a lot of bad teams, sports teams who sign people to long-term contracts and they're stuck just dumping money into this person for poor performance.
Right.
And so I think that you can look at that as training. Like, hey, whatever you're doing, like your strength training portion was good, and now it's going to be even better that you switched it up a little bit.
Right.
And then there's going to be a time where you go back to the strength training.
Yeah.
But the people have to understand there's also overlap there. Like, just because you're losing weight doesn't mean you can't get strong.
Right. It's just a matter of being able to blend the two together and do it well. And that's how, like last year, that's how it worked. We did it. I feel like we did an excellent job at blending the two.
Yeah.
And now that I've switched gyms to the one that's economically closer for me, I struggle a little bit with blending for myself.
Yeah.
So I'll get there.
And we all do, man. That's
Yeah.
why, I have, like, people say, I answer this question numerous times. People say, why do you have a coach when you are a coach?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we're our own worst critic, and sometimes you can be overly critical too. Because, with your training and stuff, you know what you're doing, but sometimes it just helps to have somebody else there to say, like, even to bounce ideas off of and say, hey, this is what I'm doing. What do you think? Does this sound like a good idea? Would you do this or that or whatever? So
Right.
I think that's largely beneficial too.
Absolutely.
Speaking of training and stuff, we have one of our former guests in a show this weekend.
Yeah. Where's she going?
She is in
Is it?
I want to say Arizona.
Yeah.
Natalie Spierka, who we interviewed on episode 8, I think.
Yeah.
I am amazed that I remember that. I hope it's episode 8. I interviewed, I think, episode 8. Am I right?
I'm gonna look. I'm just gonna look.
Okay, look that up because I don't want to mislead people. Now we have a lot of episodes that people are going to have to look through if they're trying to find one. So I think it was episode 8 we interviewed Natalie, who is a bikini competitor. It was episode 8. All right, there we go. And Natalie is competing this weekend. Today, matter of fact, she texted me this afternoon and said that she was middle of her class, which is indicative of her probably winning her class. So she's going to win her class. So she will finish first there. And she said that she's on her way to finals for the overall at 7, and she would let me know how it pans out. Now, right now it is currently 8:54, and I haven't heard from her yet.
Right.
So she's still probably either on stage or just recently getting off stage, hopefully as an overall champion. But we wanted to send some love to her, and we talked about getting her back on too.
Absolutely. So what does that mean if she wins the overall champion of this show? Does that give her qualify her for a pro card? Or?
No, this is not a pro qualifier.
Okay.
So she did a couple national shows. She did, oh my goodness, she did the USAs, which are junior USAs, which I want to say were in South Carolina. And then I believe she also did the North Americans, which that show was in Pittsburgh, and those 2 opportunities were for her pro card. And she was better than she has at previous national shows, which was great.
Yeah.
And I think that I could be wrong. I don't know if it's already passed. This shows how out of the bodybuilding show scene I've been, because actually I shouldn't say that. I've been invested in the show scene this past year, but everything's been so crazy because shows aren't when they normally are.
Right.
Like they just had Masters Collegiate and Teen Nationals, which is in Pittsburgh, and it's normally in June, July. It's usually in July, and they just had it. So everything's obviously pushed back and condensed. But I thought she said something about doing nationals in Miami, which would be a pro qualifier.
Right.
So she's, and if not, you know her, she's going to go back to work and come back bigger and better for the next season. So with her, I don't think it's a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.
Yeah, she's teed up and ready for the show, ready for it. It's just a matter of the package that she shows up with.
And then with others, who shows up there too.
Right.
Because there's been people that I don't want to say ever gifted a pro card, because if you're turning pro in any one of those classes, whether it's like bikini or figure or fitness, or with the men, if the bodybuilding or classic physique or physique, like it doesn't matter what class you're in. Like if you're turning pro, you look good.
Yeah.
But there's some people who have the ability to turn pro, but they end up showing at a show where guys who are better or girls who are better just happen to beat them. So some of the time it's about getting lucky.
Right.
You know, who shows up.
Right.
Natalie and I had that discussion at the gym before she left, where we were talking about one day during our cardio about how do you look at placing? Like if you placed 4th last year and then you placed 3rd this year, is that good? And you know, obviously, yeah, I placed better, but there's some situations where and you could place worse and be better because of it. So like
you've actually talked about that before.
Yeah.
Where you felt like you brought a worse package and did better.
Yeah, where I won and said, "Oh, I didn't look my best, so I'm not sure if I should be happy about this."
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because if let's say you place 3rd, and then the next year you do the same show and you look a lot better and it's more competitive in your class and you place 4th, that doesn't necessarily mean you went down, because the placing shouldn't matter. The physique should matter. That's the only thing that should matter.
Right.
And if you keep making improvements every time, the first place finish that everybody wants is going to take care of itself.
Right.
Like you can't keep improving every year and not eventually win. It's like if you add 5 pounds to your bench press. If you add 5 pounds to your bench press every week, it's only a matter of time before you're a world champion. Now, whether or not you do that,
right,
is one thing, because not everybody can do that. It's the same thing with bodybuilding. You get to the point where you can't improve every year, usually because of age or whatever. You know, when you get older, it's harder and harder. But, theoretically, if you were to progress every year, then you're eventually going to win whatever show you do, because you can't improve and not get better, and it will result in the placing eventually. So we'll have to keep them updated with how Natalie does.
I'm excited.
Wanted to get her back on specifically to talk about social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because she's kind of blown up on social media, and she's like so good at like playing the game, so to speak. I don't know how she does it, because she invests so much time at the gym filming, or she'll be there for hours and hours, and she, will be able to set up her camera, and it's amazing for me because she's able to like do that, and her sister helps her out too, where they'll film some of her sets. And for me, I don't have the ability to focus like that.
Right.
To where like I could turn it off and then turn it back on for the set.
And she's like super intense through her whole workout.
Yeah.
So she has the ability to be that intense and be that fired up, but also take the time to record and make sure she's getting the right angle.
Yep.
It's just, I don't know how she does the two, because like whenever I record a workout, it's the recording's a byproduct. Like I want to stay focused on my workout, so I'm not getting good angles. I'm not getting the best look. You know what I mean? But she's getting both, where she's getting a good workout. It's obvious she's getting a good workout every time, because it's showing her product's getting better and better and better.
Mm-hmm.
So she's not, like you said, she's incredible. I mean,
very cool how you've seen like her transform in social media too, because she's very good at, like, she's very interactive and stuff. And I see a lot of the things she put out there is pretty cool. So we want to have her back on to talk about, how she took off on social media, because for a lot of people, and I can be one to kind of testify to this, social media is a business.
Yeah.
Now, I don't make money directly off social media. Like, I'm not one of those people who has like, sponsorships, or because some people actually get paid to have a YouTube account or whatever, and they make lots and lots of money. Now, I'm nowhere near that, obviously, but like for me, I use my Instagram as a platform to market some of my athletes, which then in turn gets me more business.
Absolutely.
So I think there's business opportunities there too. And I know that there are some people that are very old school and very against social media, and I know that there's a lot of negatives that come with it. But I think that people are doing themselves a disservice if they don't at least explore the social media game a little bit and see what social media can provide. So yeah, man, we'll have to hopefully update our listeners that she won the overall.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Next week.
That'll be cool.
Which we're coming to the wire here for week 52, because we got next week's 50, week after that's 51, and then the big 1 year anniversary has come.
That's insane.
I know. Again, we probably sound like a broken record, but I just hope I want people to get the feeling when, like, we talk about the year anniversary and stuff. I want people to perceive that as us showing humility and not thinking that we would ever get to that point.
Right.
But I also want people to take that in the context of, we don't think that we've done anything special by getting to this point either.
Yeah.
It's like, not, it's like when you lost, let's say, your first 100 pounds. Like, before you started, you'd never think that you would lose the weight.
Right.
And then when you lost the weight, you can say, you have earned the right to say, I never thought I could do that. Now, that doesn't mean that you're going around bragging because you lost 100 pounds, because there was still more weight to lose,
right.
but you at least kind of relish in your accomplishment for a little bit. And I think that's kind of where we are, where, we're still going to do a lot better, hopefully. And we're, not saying that we've done anything special, but for us, it was more than what we had. Actually, I shouldn't speak for you, but it was more than what I had envisioned. I knew that the possibility was there, and I thought, yeah, the possibility's there, but whether or not it actually happened, that was another thing.
I thought that, as busy as we both are, I was concerned that we wouldn't have enough time to put in the work.
I think that's the best way to put it. I agree. Yeah. I knew that we would, if we had the time and the fortitude to stick to it, I knew that people would listen and we would eventually continue for however long we wanted to. But like you said, given our schedules, I didn't know if that was going to be something that was sustainable for us.
I'm honestly proud of us as each other for making it happen. You know what I mean? Making the time, even on these days where, like you said, it's 9:00, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And 9:00 don't sound like a lot to a lot of people, but when you start your day at 2:30 or 4:00 in the morning, 9:00's late.
Yep.
So,
and we still, when we initially started this, we said that we'd like to release every Saturday.
Yep.
And that was the goal. And that was almost like the promise.
Yeah, it is.
And up until this point, we're a couple weeks away from a year, and we have not missed a single Saturday.
We've been kind of late.
We've been cutting it close. And actually, speaking of that, you and I talked about it off air a week or two ago. When we uploaded a few of the episodes, I don't know if it was because it was late, but it's in our time zone. It's Eastern time zone still, I believe, on our Libsyn account, which is where we upload our podcast episodes. It was registering as popping up on Sunday. So I don't know why that was. Because, I mean, we know for a fact it was uploaded on Saturday, because Justin and I, when we upload the episode, make sure that we play it back to make sure that it's actually working and everything's fine and there's no glitches and it uploaded okay and there weren't any errors. So I know for a fact we've uploaded every Saturday. Whether or not Libsyn reflects that, because some of the dates are like Sunday, I don't know how that works, or if it's, again, I think it's Eastern Standard Time, which is what the time zone we're in. So who knows? Just wanted to throw that disclaimer out there so everybody didn't think we were lying. Well, anything else you'd like to add here?
I guess just to say that, keep listening, because I think if we don't bring value, I know our upcoming guests are going to bring value.
Yeah, for sure. Even if you only listen to if you only listen to 1 or 2 episodes a year, that's still appreciated, because there may be only 1 or 2 guests a year that kind of resonate with you and feel that you can relate to. Yeah. Now, we always strive to have a lot more than 1 or 2, because we try to have our guests that have a message that's applicable to a lot broader range of people. But even if you only listen once, we appreciate that, because that's one more person than before. Yeah. So as corny as that sounds,
Absolutely. And if you something you specifically would like to hear Charlie and I talk about, or make us think about so we can talk about it, shoot us a message at for the social media world at DM, and comment on one of our posts, and we'll talk about it. I
don't think we're ever dismissive over suggestions or recommendations or anything like that. Like every time somebody asks me something podcast related, I always respond. Like I'm not not above that, for sure. We appreciate any and all suggestions that people give us.
Absolutely.
Do you know what? I'm going to make another suggestion. Do you know what my suggestion is?
I bet you I can guess.
You should go to Beast Mode Baking and order yourself some goodies, because Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they are packed fresh and shipped out to you ASAP. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of their cookies and their doughs. So if you're interested in beast mode baking, please contact the beautifully gifted and lovely talented Shannon Knorr. That's SKNORR13 at Shannon Knorr's Instagram account, and she will be able to hook you up with some delicious baked goods. And I actually received a suggestion over the past week to get her back on to kind of delve more into her story, because her story was outrageously convoluted, where there were so many elements to that. You know, she overcame, for those of you that haven't listened to it yet, you need to go back and check it out. Shannon talked about, and I think it was numerous episodes, somewhere in the 40s maybe. Justin's on it. He's looking it up. We need a guy like Joe Rogan. How he has that dude that looks up everything. We need an assistant to look things up in case we lose track of it. Shannon overcame hospitalization for years as a teenager. Ended up being a high school dropout, teenage pregnancy, and now she has turned herself into an entrepreneur, small business owner. She's a nurse, mother of beautiful children, professional athlete. She's a professional bikini competitor. I mean, good Lord, this girl has it together. And it's amazing all the things she's accomplished and all the things she's overcome. And you can really kind of make an entire episode or two based on just one facet of her life, let alone the whole scope of things.
Right. I think it's episode 25 and 26.
Man, I was way off when I said 40s. Holy cow. Okay, so episodes 25 and 26. We did a two-part series with her because, as aforementioned, it was just too much to kind of condense into one.
And I think if we would have put it all, I think we could have did it in the time, looking at the time it was. I think we could have, but we wouldn't have gotten as much out of it.
Yeah, we would have been doing her a disservice, I think.
Because I was like baffled at the end of episode 1 with her, like part 1. Just the amount of stuff. Like, she's just been through so much, and just, I guess the word for her, if I was to describe Shannon with one word, it would be overcomer.
Yeah. Perfect word for it. Yep.
So if you want to take some time, if you haven't listened to all of our episodes, episode 25 and 26 is an awesome one to listen to as well.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast. This has been episode 49 with Charlie and Justin. As always, we appreciate you all. We love you all, and we will be hopefully hearing back from you next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I push to the edge and take it all. I'm born to be untamable. I go